Hey guys, welcome back to Movie Reviews. Today I am discussing the newly released disaster movie Moonfall, directed by the king of disaster movies himself, Roland Emmerich, and starring Halle Berry, John Bradley, Michael Pena, and Patrick Wilson. And also Charlie Plummer's there, and a couple others. So now, so basically, what happens in this movie is, you remember back in Avengers: Infinity War, back when Thanos threw a moon. Yeah, so kind of imagine that, but Earth's moon. Okay, movie review over. Okay, no. Okay, yeah, no. There's more to this than just having a Mad Titan use magic stones to throw a moon. Okay, so first, before anything, a spoiler warning is here. You know, this is your spoiler warning. Nothing else. You know, if you don't want to be spoiled, stop here. And yeah, so I'll see you after you watch the movie, I guess. Anyway, okay. So disclaimer's over. Okay. So this movie starts off back in 2011. Remember back then, you know, the world was just so simple and easy. You know, there was no COVID 10 years ago. I was only 9, but still I remember it. So, it takes place, Josina Fowler, who Halle Berry portrays, along with Brian Harper, who Patrick Wilson portrays. They are two astronauts. Well, they are astronauts that are up above the Earth, fixing a satellite with their partner Marcus, and both Brian and Marcus, they are outside the space shuttle doing work on the satellite, while Joe is watching them, you know, observing them, making sure everything's all good and such. So as they're working, and they're just talking and working, they're not whistling while they work, but they're talking while they work. All of a sudden, this mysterious force kind of crashes, that hits their shuttle and the satellite, and it knocks out Joe. It throws Brian and Marcus both off the satellite. Marcus is lost to space. He's unable to get back, but Brian is able to get hold of the shuttle, and is able to orient the shuttle to make it stop spinning. And yeah, Marcus is unfortunately lost to space, while Joe, she's not unconscious, so she doesn't really know what happened. But Ryan, so they go back to Earth, and there is just immediate news about the incident. You know, many people think it's human error, that Brian did something wrong, and yeah, but in actuality something happened, but no one believes Brian Harper's claims that something else happened, and Joe Fowler can't back up his claims because she was knocked unconscious, so she couldn't really see what was going on. She didn't know what happened. And as a result of these claims, Brian Harper, he is fired from NASA. He loses his job. His wife and son, they both divorce him, his wife divorces him, and you know, his life just goes downhill. And yeah. So now we go 10 years into the future. It's 2021. And so now we go to the University of California, and there's this guy who John Bradley portrays, Dr. Casey Houseman, who is looking into he is a doctor, but he works many part-time jobs, which I guess I can kind of attest to, because I can relate to, as someone that works multiple part-time jobs to make ends meet. But and he occasionally goes into the other professor's computers, and he looks up information, because he believes that the moon is a megastructure, that it is some kind of big, huge machine built by extraterrestrials in order to keep Earth, livable, and that it is powered at its core by a dwarf star. So he is looking, at evidence about evidence possibly relating to it when he hears from, colleagues that think that he is one of the professors that the moon is beginning to get off its orbit, and in all the billions of years the moon has been there in its current position, it is beginning to lose track of its orbit, and that he's very confused about what is going on. But he's not the only one that notices this. That NASA, where Josina Fowler still works, the people there, they're starting to say, yeah, the moon's beginning to get off its orbit, and they are very concerned about this because their predictions show that the moon, as it begins to get off its orbit, it will basically it will circle the Earth 3 times. And the final time, as it's circling the Earth, parts of it will break off and fall to Earth, and very large chunks of the moon, and eventually the moon itself will completely crash into Earth and cause an extinction level event. So basically, the moon, it's going to be kind of doing a whole Majora's Mask moon thing, by just crashing into the world. Except at least the moon won't look so creepy. Seriously, that moon in Majora's Mask, oh dear lord, that is the scariest moon I've ever seen. But yeah, so NASA's very concerned about this, and as well, in one of the craters, they are also noticing that there is a artificial hole in one of the craters of the moon. So they want to try to send a shuttle up to the moon to, figure out what the heck is going on. So as they're preparing to do so, meanwhile, Dr. Hausman, he's trying to just get people to believe him. He's trying, or just not believe him, but he's trying to get people to tell, he's trying to tell people the information that he knows, that the moon is off its orbit and could possibly wipe out all life on Earth. So he actually tries to go and meet Brian Harper, who, nowadays, Brian Harper, he's not the big, awesome astronaut that he was 10 years ago. He is kind of, not doing so good. He's on the verge, he's broke, he's on the verge of getting evicted from his apartment, and his son, his now estranged son, who lives with his ex-wife, and now her new husband, who's portrayed by Michael Pena. I know, Luis from Ant-Man, who basically, he is, Sonny, their son, their now 18-year-old son, is not doing so good. He just got arrested for causing an accident, and Brian cannot, and no one else can, and then they can't afford to pay the bail to get him out. And now, things just really are not looking too good. So meanwhile, Brian, he goes one day to the Griffin Observatory in Los Angeles to, give a presentation just about his experience as an astronaut to kids, and, he finds Dr. Hausman there, wanting to talk to him and show him his findings about what's going on with the moon, but Brian kind of portrays him as crazy, and he just tosses out his papers and just completely ignores Casey. So, upon hearing, Casey is once again completely just ignored. And Brian, after hearing that, now his son is in jail, and that, trying to just beg to the court to let him out, and that, just to let his son out, they find out on nationwide news, or international news nowadays, that it is revealed that the moon is off its orbit. So somehow, some way, Dr. Hausman got to the press and released the statements that the moon is off its orbit and will soon crash into Earth. I guess we can kind of say that Dr. Casey Hausman is he's kind of like Charlie Frost from 2012,
Bring it on! Always remember, folks, you heard it first from Charlie!
I guess in a way we kind of did. We heard it first from Casey this time, not Charlie. But, yeah. So, upon, this press release being revealed, NASA is immediately kind of like just completely bombarded with questions. But NASA being NASA, the director of NASA kind of just says, you know what, we're going to be sending out astronauts to check it out and, to just take it easy and, relax. But, well, if 2012 kind of taught us anything, when the big officials kind of say not to panic, well, actually no. In the wise words of a quote from 2012,
The guy's an actor, he's reading a script. When they tell you not to panic, that's when you run!
yeah, no, when people say not to panic, that's when you kind of question things more. So the shuttle, or the astronauts, NASA sends out their astronauts. They send out 3 astronauts to investigate the hole on the moon and just kind of figure out what is going on, what's causing the moon to go off its orbit and crash into Earth. And they get to the hole, they get right above it, they send a probe deep below into the hole to examine it, and the probe, it goes down, but it, for whatever reason, stops midway through the crater. But then it goes right back up into the crater. It goes up into the crater right towards the astronauts, and all of a sudden they are attacked and surrounded by this giant mass, this machine mass that completely destroys the ship and completely kills all 3 astronauts in a very brutal fashion. So, upon seeing the video feed of this, the director of NASA, he is completely terrified of this, and he resigns and gives Jo Fowler, she's now the director of NASA, and he kind of hints to her to go down into the archives of NASA to look into, some incidents of some very strange things. So she goes down to the archives, and she actually finds Donald Sutherland, not actually Donald Sutherland, but the character that he portrays, and he basically, upon both of them looking at some of the files, they realize that, NASA kind of knew a bit about some of the weirdness of the moon flat out or straight away. She figured, that they find out that back in 1969, when the first astronauts went to the moon, that the 2-minute gap in between the feed, which that actually is a real thing, that there were 2 minutes of feed that were lost mysteriously, or that were cut, that in actuality, when the space shuttle landed on the moon, the moon rang like a bell for a good several minutes, which kind of concludes that the moon could be hollow.
In school you were taught that Apollo 11 lost contact with the world for 2 minutes. Not true. They found something on that day that they kept hidden for 50 years.
And that's actually not something that just happened in the movie. That actually happened here in real life when they actually went to the moon. So, and as well, on their incident at in 2011, when Brian, Joe, and Marcus were up in space, that what happened to them, they were also attacked by the same thing that attacked and killed 3 astronauts here on the moon currently 10 years ago. So, and NASA kind of knew all this time, but they were just holding back this information from people, or from the public, So upon hearing this and kind of seeing seeing this, they kind of realize that something needs to be done about this, and that this thing, it's not going to stop on its own, and that it's going to happen, and a lot of people are going to die if nothing takes place. And that Donald Sutherland's character, he reveals that NASA, upon seeing this thing, or seeing the weirdness of the moon, they did originally make a shuttle program with an EMP to try to take this thing out and stop it, but due to budget cuts, the whole entire mission got shut down. So yeah, but Fowler, she kind of comes up with a plan to try to resurrect this program to save the Earth. Meanwhile, as as NASA's trying to come up with another plan to deal with this thing, the Joint Chiefs of the Chief of Staff, which is here in the United States, that's the Department of Defense. They are kind of just coming up with plans. They're kind of feeling that there's no way to stop this. They're the generals. They are completely they don't think this will be stopped. And one of them is actually Joe's ex-husband, who and he is basically talking, and they are actually talking to each other about how he's telling her that that they are just completely expecting the entire moon to go to Earth, and that if this thing doesn't stop, they're putting people in bunkers, and they are going to in nuclear bunkers, and they're all just going to and then they're going to try to nuke the moon to at least prevent it from completely wiping out Earth. And that he's actually arranged for their son and their housekeeper to go into a nuclear bunker in Colorado with him. So yeah. And Joe Fowler, she does not want him. She's just kind of asking him to halt this, because she's kind of figured that this could truly happen. That she, there's a chance they could actually truly, stop the moon from crashing to Earth without, causing a, nuclear, without, nuking the moon. So meanwhile, as this is going on, Brian Harper, who once again is kind of failing to help his son get out, he kind of realizes that Dr. Casey Houseman was kind of right all along. That he knew before NASA that the moon was off its orbit and things are not it was not really right. So he looks up Dr. Houseman online, and he finds out that he holds regular meetings about the whole moon is a megastructure with other people, and also there's free bagels. So yeah, he's going. So he goes to the hotel where they are holding their meeting, and he kind of talks to Dr. Houseman about like how he knew all this before. And Dr. Houseman kind of just, tells him his theories that the moon was artificial and that it's made by extraterrestrials, and, just kind of all the things that, he believes in and thinks are true. So, yeah, and, and it basically just, but meanwhile, as this is all happening, because the moon is getting off its orbit and it's getting closer to Earth, the Earth as itself is already starting to feel some very bad effects.
In breaking news, the governor has just ordered the mass evacuation of the entire West Coast.
Moving to higher ground is the only possible chance of surviving.
Stay awake, my brothers and sisters! Stay awake!
The tides are all out of whack, and it's actually forming huge tsunamis that are wiping out areas on the coast, and also gravity and air anomalies, whereas there's times where there's no air whatsoever. And as well, there are gravity there's very little gravity in places. And one of these giant tsunami waves is coming towards it's actually coming right towards where they are in the hotel, and they immediately go higher up in the hotel to avoid the water. And yeah, so so as they're just kind of trying to take shelter, Brian and Casey, they're just taking shelter in the hotel, just kind of resting, kind of waiting for rescue to go and get them. Joe Fowler, she's kind of working around the clock with NASA to try to get try to just get a shuttle out of ready to go to the moon, and with an EMP to take out this thing that's kind of wreaking havoc with the moon. but upon further investigation, she realizes that they need, they got that in order to actually get over to the moon and safely do this, they need to be able to pilot the shuttle without using so much power, because this thing, it reacts to anything electric. It will go after any kind of machines. So it truly needs to the only person that is able to actually fly a shuttle with very little power is her old colleague, Brian Harper. So she goes out looking for Brian and trying to find him so he can save the world. So they eventually find him and with Casey, and they actually take both Casey and Brian to Joe. And Casey's actually really nervous by this because he thinks he's actually getting in trouble for going on UCLA's computers when he was not supposed to. But that's actually not true, but it's actually kind of very funny how he reacts to it. So, Joe Fowler, she kind of tells him the plan about what's going on and just everything. And, Brian, he agrees to do it on one condition, that they are able to get his son, Sonny, out of jail and, bring him over to the place that they are. And yeah, so they are able to, so they are getting everything set up, and they are able to get Sonny released out of jail. And meanwhile, as this is going, as they're preparing to launch the shuttle to save the world, society all around them is crumbling. Between just the natural disasters and also just the societal disasters, how, societal order is just breaking down and falling apart. People are just, they're looting, they're robbing, they are killing each other. It's complete chaos. So, so finally they are set to launch, but sadly, due to an earthquake, that as they're about to launch, one of the engines for the rocket, it gets damaged, and now they immediately realize that they're unable to launch, that they don't feel that they can do it. So all the crew there, and they begin to, most of them begin to leave and go to the bunkers in Colorado, because they realize that it's over, that the only way to stop this is to nuke the moon and hope that it works. But before Brian, Casey, and Joe leave, and also Sonny, Joe's son, and also their nanny, and a few other of the workers at NASA, they realize that very soon, as the moon goes right above the Earth, it'll actually pull gravity right towards it, which will actually work in their favor, and that they could actually fly with only two rockets and actually reach the moon, because gravity will be working with them instead of against them. So they all agree to this plan. So Dr. Hausman, Joe, and Brian, they will go in the shuttle, while the two operatives, they stay behind and kind of do groundwork, while Sonny, Michelle, who is actually the nanny, and Michelle's son, whose name I can't actually remember, but they will head off to Colorado, just to the bunker with her ex-husband to be safe. So they set out to drive as the shuttle is about to take off. But as it's taking off, with the gravity wave, there is also a huge tsunami that wipes out that. They are able to successfully take off, but it completely wipes out and kills the two operatives, and Sonny is able to drive everyone to safety, but still, our three heroes, they set off. They're able to successfully make it up out of orbit in orbit, I guess, over to where the moon is, as Sonny, Michelle, and Joe's son, they are continually making progress to Colorado. But midway through this, they run into some trouble when they get carjacked by people that have completely lost their minds. And yeah, so they're actually able to get another car and actually get help from, of all people, Sunny's mother and her new husband. And yeah, so they all set out to, they all plan to go to, make their way over to the bunkers to be safe. But they first prepare with, they get, they get a gas mask to, help with, to help breathe, and just to help breathe when there's times during the times when there's no air. So they begin to make their way over to all of them together. They begin to make their way over to the bunkers, and as just the world around them kind of falls apart, like they're as chunks of the moon fall.
This planet.
The gravity anomalies happen, and also air anomalies happen, and also trying to avoid looters, as they get into shoot-offs with some of them. So now over to the moon, both Joe, Brian, and Casey, they make it over to the moon, and they try to enact their plan to have this thing go after the EMP, and it will short circuit it and completely shut it down. It works, but it actually does not work, because this thing, it is able to shut down. It's able to it has its own kind of version of an EMP. It kind of shuts down their electronics, but they're able to trick it and keep it from completely destroying them by manually turning off their own engines, their own ship. So they then go into the moon. They actually kind of follow this thing into the moon through the hole that it made into the moon. And as they continue to go down and follow it, they find that, Casey and all these conspiracy theories that the moon is hollow and powered by a dwarf star are true.
Are we dead?
No, we are just inside the moon.
That might be the greatest sentence anyone's ever said.
That it is hollow and it is a true megastructure. And that, this thing is attacking it. It is attacking the moon and the dwarf star, and that is what's causing the moon to go out of orbit, and things happen. So they're completely are trying to avoid this thing, and eventually they're actually saved by the moon, by forces within the moon. And when the three of them kind of come to, when they wake up, they kind of are beginning to think that, there's kind of different factions of what's going on. That the moon itself, there's something that's trying to help them, while this thing that's on the outside is trying to destroy the moon and trying to kill them. So they begin to walk and also try to find Brian, who actually got separated, and that Brian, he actually wakes up and he actually sees Sunny. He sees, and it's Sunny, it's actually not Sunny, his son, but it is the consciousness of the moon. That basically this consciousness actually is telling him kind of the history of how the moon came to be here, and that long ago, like billions of years ago, ancestors of humanity, which look just like humans, they were superiorly advanced, and they were living at complete peace in the universe. There was no war. It was kind of like, it was heaven, like perfect heaven. They were technologically advanced and living at peace, but their own artificial intelligence went out of control, and it began to target and kill these ancient humans, and that in order to try to have humanity or their society, their civilization function somewhere else, they made these arcs, which were basically moons, and they sent them off to planets where they could eventually repopulate and start up life again with their own DNA. But sadly, these artificial intelligences, they destroyed all of them but one, and that one was the Earth's moon, is what would eventually become the Earth's moon, and eventually life began on Earth, and eventually here they are now. And they basically just tell, and this consciousness basically tells it basically tells Brian, I forgot his name for a second, that, in order to, that, they kind of have to go along with what originally they were planning to, use their own ship to, use the EMP, use the EMP to shut this thing down. And that this thing, it will completely, if it could succeed, it will completely wipe out the moon and wipe out Earth, which will completely, stop, it'll kill all life on Earth, and also, prevent the moon from restarting life on Earth. So, kind of killing two birds with one stone. So, he basically tells, so once Brian comes to, he tells Casey and Joe what's going on, and that he also says that one of them will have to sacrifice, in order for this to work, one of them will actually have to sacrifice themselves to use the EMP to destroy this thing. So Brian initially is going to do it, is willing to sacrifice himself to save everyone else, but as they are beginning to fight about, as Joe and Brian are actually beginning to fight about, like why he shouldn't do this, Dr. Hausman goes to do it himself, and Brian is trying to convince him not to do it, but he does it anyway. And before actually leaving to set out to do it, Dr. Hausman kind of reveals that he's not actually a doctor. He only uses the title of doctor to sound cooler, to make it sound like he knows more. Which, well, he does know more, but he's not an actual doctor. Casey, he sacrifices himself. He's successfully able to use the EMP to completely destroy this thing, and as a result, the moon, it begins to go back to its original orbit, and Joe and Brian, they're able to successfully make it back to Earth, and they're able to reunite with their families, and Earth is saved. But right at the end, just as it looks like it's over, it's revealed that, well, while Casey, he did die, he's actually talking with the consciousness of the moon, and, they were able to scan and absorb his consciousness, so his body may be completely destroyed, but his consciousness is now in the moon, so in a sense, he is now running the moon. And they kind of leave this with a bit of a cliffhanger, where, they kind of make it seem like there could be a sequel to this movie. Could there be? I don't know, but, we'll see. We'll see what Roland Emmerich does. So, yeah, that's the movie. All in all, this movie, it's not one of Roland Emmerich's best movies, but it's not one of his worst movies either. 2012 is still my personal favorite Roland Emmerich movie. It's really great, but this movie, it just doesn't compare to that. One thing that this movie does do well at, it tells its story really good. Like, I was expecting this movie not to have much of a story. Because, it's just a basic disaster movie. Usually disaster movies don't really have big, interesting stories, but this one actually does. And it really does well with it. Also, the visuals, wow, just the CGI, it looks amazing. It absolutely looks amazing. And the actors, they do very well at portraying their characters. Some of the things that this movie, I do have a few problems with is, the destruction kind of isn't as much as I would like. For the moon kind of falling to Earth, we're not really seeing that much destruction. You would think with this happening, we would see scenes of complete just devastation and, millions or thousands of people dying at once when, we're not really. We're kind of more focused on our characters, which, for this movie, I do think, that is better, but, I would have liked to have seen, a little bit more destruction, but, oh well, it doesn't kill the movie, but, it's just not nearly as good, and also one thing that's very interesting, for Roland Emmerich, he himself, he's not really into superhero movies, but there's so many, nods to just, I'm going to say Marvel, you have the moon crashing into a planet, and even scenes that look like when Thanos threw the moon at, the Avengers on Titan. And there's also nods to the Eternals, or not nods, but where it's there's advanced beings that, created the moon, they remind me so much of the Eternals, and just other things, and, it's very interesting, and, You know, I personally really like this movie. I give this movie, you know, I personally think this movie, it's very good, you know, and I think it also kind of backs up, you know, the idea that, you know, there's much about our moon that we don't know, that, you know, that maybe NASA knows, but they are not willing to tell us. It could be hollow, it could be artificial, who knows, but, you know, we don't know. And as well, you know, it kind of also backs up the idea of, you know, in a way, you know, what many ancient cultures talk about, how there were times back when, I guess, the gods, you know, their gods or God, whatever, depending on the religion and culture, there were times when they lived, you know, that humans and divine beings lived together, you know, in, you know, perfect harmony. And at some point something happened, whereas now the world is the way it is now, where there's, you know, chaos and, you know, it's not perfect. So yeah, you know, it makes several nods to like things like that. So all in all, this movie, it's pretty good. It's not bad. It's not great, but it's, you know, I would watch it. I give this movie a B, a solid B. So yeah, you know, check this out. If you enjoy Roland Emmerich movies, I think you'll like this. And yeah, so what is the next movie that we're gonna be watching? It stars Tom Holland. And no, it's not Spider-Man. Spider-Man 4 is not coming yet. But it's actually based off a video game. And it stars Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. Well, here's the trailer.
How are they gonna get them out of here?
Yep, next movie is Uncharted. So yeah, we'll be seeing Tom Holland not be Spider-Man. That'll be weird. Oh well. Anyway guys, if you enjoyed this video, give us a like and subscribe if you're not, and share this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
It's over.